Yes, we've got to agree on our name, and which all of these things seem a bit, bureaucratic, but they're just part of the process of just the early stages of something. And the purpose of this meeting. So Max is going to discuss the matrix that he's set up, which is the sort of database of everything. And just refer to my notes. The 4 groups. So what we want to do, what we want to cover. So there'll be an opportunity to debate who wants to do what with who, and follow on from subsequent meetings. And then, does anybody want to use the 4-hour future? Use it or lose it? So we'll spend a few minutes on that. So the predominant point of this meeting will be to spend time on the 4 groups that we'll come up to. So going through these slides, the purpose. So we want to create an enduring team. And I'm not going to read everything it says there because Max has written it perfectly. So, the fundamental principles of reducing waste, and reuse, repair, and so on, and looking at the impact, and looking at where those opportunities are to improve efficiencies, which is what we're hoping is where the community link into the existing systems can come into play. Engaging with businesses, schools, public bodies, and that's such a sort of key problem where we seem to be seeing that these things require support, and quantify and record and employ data-driven propositions, which really has to be the case. It has to be driven by whether things are realistic and achievable, and that there is a point to them that validates the time spent on them. So am I going to hand over to you now, Max?
You can do if you like, yes. Just to say that I presume we've just agreed what you've just shown, Julie. Has anyone got any comments on the purpose, or is everyone happy to live with that? I hope.
I can see no thumbs down.
Okay, well let's take that as read then. So really, as Julie's just said, the main purpose of tonight is to talk about the matrix, and then in particular to focus on 4 groups that we can create, because the 4 subjects listed there are the ones that were most often raised by the people at the previous meeting, and they seem to be the most important issues. And if we can start with just a small number of items to focus on, I think we should be able to achieve far more than trying to cover everything at the same time. So it's the way of eating the elephant, and I'm sure we will. So the first one of those then is community collection. If we go down to the next slide.
Fine tune where it is. Is that okay?
If you drag the slider slightly.
Yeah, it wants to go either up or down.
If you move your cursor to the slider on the right. And anyway, okay.
Sorry, Max. Sorry.
Let's live with that. So the picture on the top left is what we call not the bus shelter in Cernavas. And there's been a lot of people saying they might like to have something similar. So these are the details for it, without having to travel to Cern to actually see the thing itself. So the main points about it are that it used to be a bus shelter. It's redundant because the bus couldn't get round the village because of the parked cars eventually. And it happens to be stone with a tiled roof. Now inside are 3 notice board areas. And the right-hand one is the parish council, and the middle ones are for the community to use. And we have a couple of decan leaflet dispensers on everything which might be of interest to anyone in the village. There's some very good stuff in that. And on the left-hand notice board are lots of tradespeople. So there's quite a heavy footfall there. And then lower down are reused containers where they've been allocated specific kinds of recycling. So on the right-hand side, in the types area there, it's between 2 pubs and the village shop. So it's really easy. And there's a sort of a pit stop for a car that happens to be next to it. So someone can drop in and drop something off on their way somewhere else. Or on the way to school, children can do it. Or on the way back. And the disposal of everything, which is combined with trips anyway, so there's no extra carbon involved. Everything gets magically put in the right place as the list below that. And Laurel is the person primarily responsible for doing that, and we're very grateful for her to do it. And for those who didn't see previous presentations, the stats there are what we collected in 10 weeks at the end of 2024. Now, if you multiply that by 5.2, you might get the equivalent of a year. And if this is from roughly 1,000 people, these are staggering large amounts. Staggering. And it just shows what comes out of the community if you make it easy for them. So these people are not going to household recycling centres for the items that they leave here. And they're not putting them in the wrong place at home or just adding them to rubbish. So we think this is a very, very valuable thing. And the most valuable aspect of it is that they're separated, they're not contaminated, so they're ready to process. Now at the bottom left, should anyone else want to have a similar facility, there's all sorts of versions. It'd need to be sized to what someone thinks is appropriate for their location, and it could be traditional or urban. And then the 5 questions which I raise on the bottom right are really what an agenda could be if we created a group of people which not necessarily want to have not the bus shelter, because organisations like Win on Waste, and Stacey can't be with us tonight, but they do things in an entirely different way, because they have dedicated places which are pop-ups, which are advertised, and people come to those pop-ups and leave specific items for those specific locations, which, if memory serves, I think are weekly or fortnightly, I can't remember. But there's a kind of rotation in 11 locations, and that works really well in a different way. But because they're carrying the waste away or taking it away, a lot of what they do is licensed as waste carriers. So it's a different way of doing similar community-led collection and recycling. And if 60% of the waste, as I was told, at W&S Recycling in Poole, 60% of the cost for them is labour cost, to re-sort out the material that was brought to them, which is mixed again. So it's this conundrum, and these methods of community collection seem to shortcut that. So I think that could be very viable if it was to be looked at seriously. So if the council could help us succeed, instead of relying on volunteers so much, maybe we can work out smarter ways to make the most of it, and perhaps maybe trial something by the councils which might work in their area, and get some high quality stats, and see if there is a case for doing more of this elsewhere. So whether it's this way or the Win on Waste way, to name two, I think there's a lot of potential. And I think that a group focusing on this could produce some really good results. So there's two things I'd like to know. One is, how many people think they might be able to have a not the bus shelter sort of idea if they found a place, and if we could just capture how many individuals that might be, that'd be really helpful. So, as they say on whatever panel game it is, vote now. How many can you see, Julie? Can you see?
Pam has right, we've got Pam's raised her hand.
Yes, I agree. Sarah Jane, yeah.
Sarah Jane?
Yes, it's a good idea, yep.
Deborah Childs.
Very good. People can always join in later, you know.
Or pop any comments in the chat if you want.
Absolutely. Or send an email in post-meeting if you fancy the idea, if you want to discuss it with other people first. And then the second question, question 5 really, is who would like to be in a group to focus on this? Which I hope is quite a few people, because it involves virtually every community across Dorset. And it doesn't really matter whether you're a provider of an existing community collection or someone contributing to it. I think anyone who'd like to be involved to find out how we can make things better.
Yes, again, I'd like to, yep.
Terrific. And you? And again, if anyone wants to add that to the chat, if they're technically able to, or just pop an email in later to Dorset Can, and then we can get everybody together and let you decide how you'd like to take this forward, because it's very much a DIY process, really.
I think in Dorchester we've got such good access to collection points that we hardly need
Right.
an additional one. I don't know what Giles thinks.
Right. That's very, very fortunate. That's very good.
I think there are some things which the local recycling centre doesn't cope with, though. So there are always opportunities to push it further than what is provided by the council. I mean, you talked about blister packs, for example. I don't think those are dealt with by the local recycling centre.
Yeah, you just take them to Boots.
Oh, you know better than me then.
Well, I have to dispose of some, that's what I know.
Apparently that works at some Boots, but not others. depends which boots you go to. People I know have been turned away, particularly if they try to come in with a volume of them, having collected some.
Just seeing Dave's got his hand up.
Okay.
Yeah, St Abbas is quite a posh area, is it not? Do you think this will really work? I mean, if it was in Weymouth, not wishing to be negative, it would be trashed, and all the stuff would be end up down the street. So,
Well,
do you think it will replicate across like more urban areas?
That's one of the reasons for having a trial in an urban location. But one of the key things about St Abbas is that this particular location is overlooked by residential properties. So it's under sort of 24/7 observation anyway. So I think that helps a lot. It's not as though it was remote, you know. And if anybody was...
I mean, from experience, when they put like clothing banks, that we've had clothing banks locally, and people just end up dumping trash there, and like stuff that can't be recycled, and if people got an excuse somewhere where it's like the same happens to charity shops now, people just dump rubbish outside charity shops. If there's some, my fear is that people just use it somewhere to drop off all their rubbish, because to me it seems to be at the opposite ends to what the council is trying to achieve, because we keep asking for recycling bins, and they say we can't have recycling bins because people put the wrong stuff in, but then you're having a bus stop where people can drop anything in. So the two things seem to be at odds with each other. If we can't trust people to put stuff in the recycling bin, how can we trust them to leave stuff at the bus stop?
Well, I think the main success is because things are labelled in such a way that when you flip the top on the container, you can see that it's full of just one item. So that seems to encourage a lot of people to do the right thing in our case. But I take your point.
Pam, is your hand up because you put your hand up to join in, or have you got another question? And then Sarah after Pam, if Pam has got a question. Statement.
No, sorry, I forgot to take it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So Sarah, I mean, the psychology of putting the right thing in the right bin is just.
I was going to agree with both the last two speakers, really, in terms of, firstly, because of the urban area, whereas St Abbas is much more probably community minded, much smaller. Any bins that we put out generally just end up with all sorts of unpleasant things in them. So this is why Win on Waste, I think, works in an urban area, because it is managed by them. They are, and I used to volunteer for them as well. So we used to receive the items in and be able to look through them and almost educate people, say, oh, actually, we can't accept these for this reason. So yeah, any of our on-the-go recycling, as we tend to call it in waste industry, which is the recycling bins, we never get anything good from them. It all ends up having to be thrown away. So yeah, and also what the first speaker, the first person mentioned, apologies, I'm not following names quite so well, but about the fact that there's a good access to many of these things already in the community, in terms of blister packs can go to Boots. I don't know if Boots have extended it out to all now. But yeah, and John Lewis in our area recycles quite a lot of items, so that access is there. So I just wanted to sort of agree with the last two speakers and make that point, really, that contamination is a massive issue for us.
Can I say?
I was just
Beth has raised a very good point, which is that she knows of locations where the containers are actually in shops, and I know some are in repair shops as well. So when there's a supervised environment, I think that refines it greatly. But I think we're in danger of talking like an interest focus group here, which shows how much people, I think, want to say something about this. So if we could somehow identify a group where this can be taken at greater length, I'm sure we can uncover some really excellent best practice and then share that with other communities.
Yeah,
does that sound good?
Yeah. I think my issue is that the whole point of a community collection is to enable those people within the community to have their items taken for them where they are unable to take those items for themselves. So, yeah, Charmouth, I think it's something like 65% of people are over 65, and something like the remaining are over 80. They don't go to Boots with their blister packs. They assume that they will be recycled in the recycling. They have no access to the recycling facilities that are out there. And that's true of a huge number of the rural areas of Dorset. So I think that's one reason why there's a real place for these community collections, is to support those people who want to recycle and haven't got access to it. So there's lots of different ways of doing this. As you say, Max, there's a sort of focus group there that we can look at all aspects of it. Francis and Dave, have you got, so Dave, is your hand up to say more, or?
Yeah. Going back to the very first meeting, the lady from Dorset Council then said, which we agree with, that some of the organisations that you send things like blister packs to aren't really auditable. So one of the concerns I have is people are sometimes paying and spending hours doing something, and there's no guarantee that it's actually being recycled at the end of the day. So I think we need to firstly make sure that the waste stream is auditable, to make sure you're not just sending stuff off. Because if you as soon as you introduce a price to something, if you're paying someone £75 to recycle something, if they chuck it in an incinerator, they're making £75. So there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in the recycling industry. So I think it needs to be wary of where you're sending stuff. And the other issue is I think there's also scope for working with like Boots with the council to things like blister packs, not necessarily, but for example, shops to having like collection points actually in shops for certain items like vapes. Now they get collected by the vape shops, but we could set things. It's more of a scope to actually have things in the shop where you get the stuff from. So if you buy like coffee pods or something, rather than having to go to the dump with coffee pods, if you had them like in Tesco's or Asda, that a volunteer could go and collect them rather than have them locally elsewhere.
Yeah, that's really, really useful. Yeah, thank you. I've made a note of that. I expect Giles has as well. Francis, you have your hand up.
Yeah, two things. Dave is right. It's worth researching where these special recycling collections go. There's a huge variation with the flexible plastic, for example. One or two firms like the Co-op are trustworthy, but if you've got doubts about any particular supermarket and where they send their stuff, it might be best not to use them, I think. Somebody mentioned education. I think that's absolutely crucial. Dorset Council have such a high recycling rate, but say they could do very much better if people simply use the bins appropriately. And I think there is quite a lot of education to do there. A lot of unnecessary stuff end up in landfill, but also sometimes contaminated stuff ends up in the recycling bins, and that contaminates the whole load.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, lovely. Shall we? Sorry, Max. I
was going to say we have a lot to get through, so we're in danger of having the focus group live. So if we could. By the way, I need to share my screen at some point just to talk about the matrix. I should have done that before these 4 items, really.
Okay, but that's fine, Max. Do you want to carry on through these and then?
Maybe should we do these 4 first? Okay.
So you on rechargeable batteries now? Yeah.
Yes. Now, again, a lot of people feel strongly about this. The illustrations on the left are the particular batteries and charger that I bought. And that was some years back. You can still get them today They're all off Amazon. But the points I want to make about it are that the latest rechargeable batteries are not like the old days. They're very, very good. So the one on the bottom left there can be recharged 12,000 times. Now that, I couldn't work it out in years, but it's way beyond my years for sure. And that's a one-off purchase. And I bought a pack of those, for example, for £5.83. So a pack of 8 for £5.83 that will last a lifetime, works in 200 devices. It's a no-brainer instead of buying single-use batteries. And the chargers that go with it nowadays are really good. They don't come with a 13-amp plug. You can connect them to a laptop, or there are multiple micro USB 13-amp plug devices whereby you can plug a number of these things in at the same time, and they consume very, very little electricity. And one of the big pluses for me is that I made a lighting system in the circulation areas from infrared lighting with rechargeable batteries. I never turn the light switch on from autumn to spring in the circulation areas. The lights never get left on, and nobody really quantifies how much is wasted by forgetting to turn lights off. So it's eliminated all of that. And that cost me, I think from memory, £30 odd. That must have paid for itself many times. But the blue part on the bottom right there, I can see they don't work in all devices. Thanks for that, chat. It's a good point. But the main issue here is that we're spending around £5 million a year on single-use batteries, 21 per person on average. The majority ends up in landfill, and what we're actually doing is putting all those metals and chemicals back into landfill, which is a madness. It's just, I think on the matrix, I've got a comment there that it's comparable to the time when we stopped using single-use carrier bags, when they were blowing down the street everywhere. And that became an issue because people could see that. In this case, it's all hidden because they just get quietly disposed of. But people don't really realise that it's avoidable in many cases. So that's something which I think a group could focus on, because unfortunately it's probably beyond the remit of Dorset and BCP Councils, in as much as we probably need to go beyond that, and there needs to be some legislation that faces up to this waste to see what we can do to reduce it. Maybe not totally, but at least to make some effort. So I don't know what people think, but that's my feeling on it.
Yeah, that I'm not sure whether it ties into Litter Free Dorset's electrical waste campaign as well. But yeah, the device issue, it's to do with current, isn't it? It's to do with how much current is supplied by a reusable battery compared to, so it's a few things that don't function, but otherwise most things function with a reusable battery, because they don't Giles being a physicist would know more, but otherwise it's definitely such a waste and a cost to the individual as well, to the environment, to be buying batteries that don't last. So Do we have any hands up for anyone that would be particularly want to be involved with that?
I guess I should be involved with this one.
You should really, Jazz. It's the energy team. It would be really good to do things like the cost comparison. Personally, I think it is that's what makes it, and the time of you know, finding you haven't got batteries. We've got a whole bank of reusable ones we've had for about 20 years, like Max says. You know, we hardly ever buy new batteries, and it is just for those specific uses. So it must have saved us so much money.
I think if you notice the 1100 milliamp hours, years ago, that would be half the capacity.
Yeah.
So things have really changed. A lot of people think they won't work, but to have a go, and I think you'll be surprised. They're really good.
Yeah, so again, we could, maybe sort of throw it over a bit to the energy team to work with that idea as well, couldn't we? A sort of liaison.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would be good.
Giles, I'll jump in here and help you out, mate.
Oh,
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Thanks.
Brilliant.
That's great.
Blister packs, that eternal one that really bothers people.
Yes, I think it's because of the capacious volume of it. People see so many of them. And just quickly, I dealt with this in the previous meeting or the original webinar. But on the picture there is 1 kilogram. And there were 19 different sizes, from 1 to 48 in a pack. Some were only aluminium, which is intriguing. Others were mixed materials, which are very difficult to separate. One of the things I noticed in there were that 40% were sort of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday approach, but 60% were random numbers, which is what the industry has been making for years and years and have never been challenged. And in that 1 kilogram, believe it or not, there are 424 packs. In 1 kilogram, 2.2 pounds in old money, a bag of sugar, and over 5,000 tablets. And in 10 months, we collected 39 kilograms of that. Sorry, in 10 weeks, we collected 39 kilograms. So it's a big issue. The point about the multiples of 7 is that for people of a certain age or disposition who receive monthly repeat prescriptions, at the moment, they're automated to come out once a month. So if they've got some medicine with 28 tablets and some with 30 tablets, which is how they're received, 2 of those tablets, which is 7%, can be thrown away every month. Now, further down on the blue questions, when we get to that, 150 million blister packs used by NHS England alone, which is enormous. When you add retailing, like Tesco's, for example, I don't know how many there are from them, but they become fantastically large numbers. And from a cost point of view, in the NHS, 20.6 billion is expended, the second largest expenditure following workforce costs. But nobody knows how much of that 20 billion is blister packs, because they don't separate that cost out. So it's a combination of potentially revising packaging to improve the recycling of it, which is difficult and expensive. And further down, on question 2 there, I think we need to challenge the manufacturers in some way. And this is another item which can't be done locally, probably, and we need to get help further up the ladder, so to speak. Because again, I think this is going to take a change in legislation to make this to be done the right way, better for the environment. And I fear, but I have no proof, that the current industry body, which if you go on their site is very plausible, but I suspect it's sort of kicking the can down the road, although it's saying lots of very encouraging phrases. So I think that's something that a lot of people could get involved with and make a difference.
Max, can I say something?
Of course.
I'm just wondering whether the two council representatives have anything to say on this, because this sounds like more of a national rather than a local problem. So I was just wondering whether you've got a view that would help to steer us on this one, because it's obviously a significant problem.
So I'm making lots of notes because I don't want to hijack the meeting. I have comments to say on those things, but I was going to share afterwards. But there are big waste reforms coming from government in terms of being able to recycle more. So producers are starting to have to pay for their waste. So there's the plastics tax. Producers are having to start to pay for their waste so that, you know, if it's not recyclable, they'll pay more. So you can already see in the shops that packaging is starting to change to become more recyclable, and that will become more so in the next few years. However, blister packs, I think, from what I've read so far, come under medical waste, and so they may end up being exempt from those waste reforms, which is a bit of a shame. But
fortunately, I'd have to agree with Sarah on that. It does seem that the government is interested in standardising typical recyclable materials under the simpler recycling scheme, but there's no mention of encompassing blister packs in that, unfortunately.
So what should we be doing locally? Because there's obviously a huge volume of blister packs, and it sounds to me like most of that's going to end up in incineration, which is a right or waste.
Yeah, I mean, they're difficult to recycle because they're mixed material, which is what the government's trying to steer most of our packaging away from a little bit. And, you know, I noticed you've put about foil. Can you keep the aluminium separate? I don't know if you've tried to separate the aluminium, but also they become so small that they're difficult to sort at those levels. So, yeah, I think the way that it's being approached now hopefully boots collecting them and being responsible for them, because they also help to produce them, and then community collections. But yeah, I don't know a way around improving it otherwise, really.
Is this in the too difficult category at the moment until we've done a bit more research, perhaps?
Definitely
It might be
more research.
Similar to plastic film. Obviously, that's taken under the simpler recycling legislation as well. But at the moment, there aren't enough avenues to dispose of it or recycle it even. So it's going to be interesting to watch in the next couple of years as it becomes mandatory to collect it, to see what actually happens with the end processors. But I assume that will be the same for blister packs. There isn't enough of a market. It's too difficult to separate, and so it might be too difficult to tackle.
Hopefully, if things are changing in terms of how packaging is created and exists, then maybe further down the line they'll start to change the way they even create this kind of packaging.
Could I just add, I don't know if you can see what in front of my face, but that's an all aluminium one.
Yeah.
And this is a mixed material one.
Yeah. No, I can't see you, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, this one's...
But I know what you mean. No.
This is white on one side, silver on the other, silver on both sides. And we in CERN could certainly separate those. It's really easy when you're doing it as a small level like we are.
Yeah.
So is it worth us doing it?
I mean, I think where you're sending them now, sorry, you're not, or you are collecting them in CERN already?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm guessing Boots send them to someone like TerraCycle, who obviously separate those out somehow, but
Well,
not
I
sure.
think it would be interesting to research all this, but I'm very confused about this 30/28 things. I mean, I was writing and signing prescriptions for decades. Can't remember when I last dealt with any times 30. It's been times 28 for years and years.
Well, I have both every month.
Amazed.
And the analysis shows that 60% are not 28s of what we did. Maybe we're just very unusual. I don't know.
Well,
That's
I
why we
always have
need.
repeats every month, and they're all 28.
Well, that's marvellous.
The one packaging we are not considering is the stuff that pharmacists themselves do for patients who can't be trusted, shall we say, and that is mainly plastic. You know, these large things they produce for patients who may have memory problems or other difficulties.
The Tesco 8 paracetamol tablets was the biggest individual kind of tablet.
That's for safety reasons, but I'm thinking of these large packs for elderly people who may not be reliable in how they take things. Pharmacies actually make them up into these large monthly packets. And the ones I've seen, all pharmacies do it, they have to do it by law. I think they're all plastic, the ones I've seen.
Well, the Boots is a combined aluminium and plastic, and that's the biggest volume individual tablet that was in the sample. So retail-wise, I say there's a role for retailers to be addressed with the issue. And if they sold them in 7s instead of 8s, it would just help people who don't know what day of the week it is, perhaps. So I think it's an area for discussion and research.
So, Max, it's a complex issue, and many manufacturers have actually gone towards blister packs to be more environmentally friendly, ironically, the supplement companies. So it's a really complex issue, because when you're looking at distribution, that's a totally separate issue, but it helps with distribution. And so it's complex. Dave,
There's patient safety behind a lot of this.
Yeah, and longevity of product and all sorts of complex issues. So it is, but you do feel that the simple aluminium ones would at least it would just be straight into aluminium recycling, and that would be the best option, wouldn't it? Dave, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, sorry. I think we need to be wary of what we're trying to achieve. I think at the end of the day, we need to know what's happening. Is it worth? Are we doing it just because it's annoying, or is anything? It's a bit like the Tetra Pak business. People think, oh, we want to recycle Tetra Paks, but at the end of the day, with the energy used and the material you get at the end, it's not actually. It's not really worth the aggravation of recycling Tetra Paks. Sending blister packs all the way to Hull, which is where they go. They go to my refactory, most of them, and then turning them to low quality. If it does get recycled into low quality aluminium and plastic, is it really worth it? When there's lots of things locally like plastic drinks bottles that don't get recycled. I mean, a very small percentage of drinks bottles, and they're easy to recycle, as opposed to something that's hard to recycle. So personally, I'd rather spend my time raising the levels of recycling the easy stuff than spend hours recycling the stuff that's hard to recycle. That makes sense. I mean, the other day I collected 800 cans and bottles from Weymouth Seafront, which would have gone to incineration. So an awful lot of litter and stuff that goes in the bins and stuff should be recycled, and that's achieving far more than blister packs, in my own personal opinion. That's me.
Yeah, it's all very useful, and that's exactly where we have to get the balance, isn't it? Thank you, Dave. Right, Max, that's brilliant. Can we move on to the next?
Yes.
issue?
This is one where I think, Julie, you've got a sort of first-hand
where I can rant.
experience. I've just put a few statistics in there. Perhaps people don't realise that the volume of tourism, according to the research I did, about 1.5 million people a year, where we've got a population of 380,000. This produces 21% more waste of various kinds. And the graphic on the bottom left shows the seasonal variation. So January is on the extreme left, and the tallest one is August. So that's the supply and demand, you might say, caused by tourism compared with the average consumption. So there may be opportunities for identifying efficiencies within that, because obviously the servicing of that variable quantity means that there's a pressure point in August, for example, where it's very difficult to deal with everything because of the volume, whereas in the less clement months, there's probably redundant amount of servicing within the system. So maybe joining with a different council that had a different profile, there may be some synergies where something from one council might be loaned to another if it's not being fully utilised, or conversely borrowed from another at a time of need. So those are just off the top of my head. But please, Julie, say what you want. It's your opportunity.
Thank you. Well, I mean, it's very difficult. We tried in Charmouth, we tried a message. So Charmouth's unusual in that the parish council owns the foreshore. And so they're a parish council that's linked to fundamentally a small population, and yet they have these 10,000 a year visitors. We tried the back to base message because the campsites have very good recycling facilities. And so if people have bought something with them, surely it's just as easy to take the empty packaging back. The reality is once you open a container, it's no longer a nice sealed container with no food contamination. You've got food coming out of the container, so you might not want to put it back in your bag once it's opened. There's all sorts of complex issues. Contamination is our biggest issue, and one of the issues actually is to do with the different bodies that are involved in waste collections. So we had Litter Free Dorset did some very nice signage for us that meant we were just collecting the plastic and tins as a trial, because card, we have so much card comes down to the beach in the form of pizza packaging and paper wrapping from fish and chips. That's almost always contaminated with food. So we thought, right, tins and plastic, and we had some lovely labelling that just said tins and plastic. Unfortunately, the actual Dorset Waste Partnership, as it was at the time, said, no, you can't have that labelling on your bin. It has to be our standard labelling. And they've refused to allow us to change the labelling back. So what happens with the bins is they just get full of card. So people are trying to do the right thing. and it just fills the bins up straight away. So the higher quality materials that we're trying to gather, that would then mean that maybe a bin could last 4 or 5 days before it was full, means the bin is full over in a day. And as Max has put there, we just don't have the space for 4 or 5 wheelie bins to collect. The compound has something like 10 wheelie bins in it. We don't have space to multiply that. The beach would just be covered in wheelie bins. So there's all sorts of complex issues, and owners, visitors, yes, in most cases the people who have holiday lets it does not work for them to have recycling facilities because of the bi-weekly collection. So there's all sorts of complex issues. So I'm sure there are smarter ways. It would be interesting to work with the councils on smaller vehicles, because you do have smaller vehicles that do specialist collections, don't you, in the difficult to reach areas. Certainly we have a small garden waste bin that goes up into the reaches of our village. So, and for me, question 3, yes, I'd like to contribute. Dave's got his hand up, being a beach man, and I'm sure there's other.
Sorry, yeah. Do you pay Dorset same as Weymouth, or do they do it free?
No, we pay. Yeah. So that's the other thing. It's half the price for a recycling bin, and so it's in our interests to have more recycling bins.
So can't you just pay someone else?
Possibly. The relationship the parish council
if you're
has.
The customer, because at the end of the day, you are. It's the same as Weymouth. At the end of the day, you are a paying business customer. So really, you should be able to specify what bins you have and what labelling you have. So
we specify what bins we have, but we have a complex relationship with other businesses. So if you've got cafes, we have 2 cafes, Heritage Coast Centre, Fossil Business. You've got, each of them has to have their own bin.
No, I'm saying the labelling. I said you can't put your labels on. But surely, if they're your own
yes,
bins,
in that sense, yes. If they don't,
your own bins you're paying for. Surely you can.
We're going to go back and talk again about this. So again, there's too many. There's something like, in this sort of chain of command, there's 4 different people involved in this, and exactly messages get lost. And
yeah, the other thing is holiday lets. Most holiday lets are supposed to be using commercial waste, so they shouldn't have 2 weekly collections. They should have weekly collections.
If they admit they're a holiday let, yes.
Well, that's one issue that the council needs to address. Really, I mean, we have the same in Wayne. But the other issue is people put in, a lot of residents that a lot of holiday people put the rubbish in litter bins because the holiday people don't provide bins for them. So that's another issue. So I think that's down to the council. Really, they should be enforcing it, but they've probably got 2 people enforcing the whole of Dorset or something like that. So it's probably not that realistic. But in an ideal world, that's what should happen. And we're saying same with business waste. We get a lot of people putting business waste into the seafront bins, and it's just an ongoing thing. But then when you speak to Dorset Council, and they're very short of staff, so the enforcement is a bit lapsed, to say the least, I think.
Well, one of the things we saw when they went to curbside and removed all the recycling facilities that were in the car park, you get a lot of people wandering around who are on holiday and they want to recycle. You don't suddenly go on holiday and not care about recycling. And so you do get people actually actively wanting to recycle, and they can't find a facility to do that. So then it ends up just going in the general bin.
I know the issue, because I sit on the climate change working party with Weymouth Town Council, and it took ages. And now that they're convinced that it doesn't get recycled, because at one point they thought it all got recycled, and now they realise it doesn't. They tried to get Dorset Council to do the recycling bins, but then it went back to Dorset Council didn't want to, because they don't like having bins because people put the wrong things in them. So it's a circular argument, and then so there's no recycling. It's the same thing. I suggested to them, because at the moment they've got green bins, a couple of green bins on the seafront, but they're paid for by the town council. But residents use them because they think they're council bins. Residents use them to put all their recycling in, so they fill up all the time. And the same thing, people put card in them. And I've said to them, you don't really need card. Like you said, you don't really need card recycling on the seafront because it's contaminated. And if you're just recycling tins and bottles, they get washed in the recycling process anyway. So if the odd burger does go in, it's not the end of the world. So I'm still trying to push for cans and bottle recycling. We've even offered to buy the bins for the seafront and empty the bins on the seafront. But then we've been told, oh, it's not as simple as that. Nothing ever is, you know.
So maybe that's with this group, we need people who live in high tourism areas, which are mostly coastal, isn't it? And definitely Sarah and Gabrielle and Martin, whoever's available to come to meetings on that, and anybody else that feels that tourism is an issue for them. Giles, your hand is up.
Yeah, again, I was rather hoping we could hear from Gabriella and Sarah, because you know, we want to help, but we need some guidance, I think, as to how we can make a difference, positive difference here.
So I can't speak for Dorset, but we have trialled just doing cans and bottles, and we didn't get any good recycling from it. Unfortunately, it didn't work for us, I believe, but I wasn't involved. Seafront are sort of their own entity, so I'd need to get more information on what the pitfalls were. But I imagine it's similar to sort of town centre on-the-go recycling. But yeah, I don't know if Gabriella's got anything to add.
No, I would agree with that. I can pass that on to Martin. I'll make a note of that. But as far as I know, from recycling bins that we have trialled on street, it has led to a lot of contamination. It wasn't sustainable. So I don't think we're looking to do that more. But I will pass that on, and perhaps Martin will have more information.
With the bins you had in Dorchester, well, one of the issues they said to us is they trialled it in Dorchester, it didn't work. But the issue with the ones in Dorchester, it was literally 2 bins back to back, one marked litter, one marked recycling, and both bins were identical with identical holes and everything else. So it encouraged people to misuse them. If you had, I feel, if you had specific bins with holes that are only big enough for a can to go in, people are not going to spend hours trying to push a chip packet in it if there's an empty bin next to it. It seems that it was the case of the bin design more than anything else. I think it's something that should be revisited.
That's exactly what we've done. Yeah.
Well,
So,
I'll make a note of that, and I'll mention that to Martin.
Yeah, so we use the psychology. Dave Levi suggested exactly that we have a general bin next to this specialised bin and just the 2 labels on it, and it did work for about a month. And then the Waste Partnership said, no, you've got to have a general label. You have to accept card as well. And that's what kind of ruined the system. So I think communication within this would be great to have some really clear thinking on it, on the psychology of it would be great.
I mean, it drives me mad when you open the bin. Sometimes they're literally half full of glass bottles, and you think they weigh so much, and all half of it gets sent across, you know, and all the cans and plastic bottles. And literally, I mean, the bins on Weymouth Seafront are 50% cans and bottles, and to be sending it off to Sweden to be burnt or wherever it's going this week, it's just, it seems crazy, just all for the sake of a system that would work. You know, I mean, it doesn't seem sustainable sending rubbish. When I speak to the holidaymakers, you know, I say, oh, when I litter pick the beach, they often say to me, oh, I was going to put that in the bin. And I say, well, don't put it in the bin. Give it to me because I'll recycle it, because we recycle all the rubbish on the beach. And it just seems crazy that a volunteer group can recycle every single thing from the beach, and Dorset Council, with all the resources, can't recycle anything from the beach. And we recycle beach toys, cans, bottles, everything apart from rubbish from the beach. And when we've spoken to the waste people that litter pick the beach, we've asked if they could recycle. We've been told they're too busy to separate the cans and bottles from the rest of the rubbish. So it doesn't seem to be, and I do it, it takes about 10 minutes at the end of a litter pick. And I just think if someone's being paid, whatever, £15 an hour, at 10 minutes at the end of the day, it isn't, as opposed to sending stuff to Sweden, surely it's a false economy otherwise to send it off. I think more should be done by the council to make an effort. If the staff are better, we've done litter picks before where we sorted all the glass bottles out, and when the van turns up to collect the stuff, we said, "Oh, put all the bottles in a bag and give them to them," and they just chuck it in the back of the lorry with all the other stuff. So we stopped doing that now. But no, it seems the council could try a little bit harder, personally.
So that could be something we could try and that's the aim, to link in, isn't it, and see where we can work together. Giles, your hand.
Yes, I mean, just to finish off that conversation, I mean, it does sound like there's a real opportunity here to do something better than what happens at the moment. So
Yeah.
let's not thrash it to death now, but I mean, I think this looks like rich for an opportunity. I was just going to ask about holiday lets. I mean, I thought that there was going to be a registration of holiday lets that was going to come in of Airbnbs. And if that's the case, that the council knows, which properties are being let out, then that should solve the problem of ensuring that they have an industrial waste license or whatever it requires to get sort of weekly. So is that, can Gabrielle or Sarah say, is that what's happening? Is there going to be a registration system for all holiday lets?
I'm not aware of that. Certainly, I think that would be beneficial. But I know that we have done some work previously, that we had a specific project officer who looked into holiday lets and trying to compile a list of them and send out letters to say you need to be on a business waste collection rather than residential. But I can find out more information about that as well if that's of interest.
Yeah, that would be really useful from every.
I'm not aware of it either. Not heard anything. It would be useful because, as you say, we don't know what's domestic waste and what is holiday waste.
Yeah. The idea is that there were areas like Cornwall, parts of Cornwall, where they were limiting the number of Airbnbs because they were destroying the towns. So it wasn't being done from a waste perspective; it was being done from a sort of a cultural impact on the village. And I thought that the law had now been changed so that councils could now do that and charge additional council tax for properties that are being rented out. It just seems to me there's a possibility of a whole connected piece here that would actually be of benefit for the waste side as well.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
It would be, if I might say, it would be very quick to find out via the internet. You just search for booking Airbnb in Dorset, and I think you'll find it's a good source of data.
Lovely. Yes. So it's again another hot topic. Brilliant. Thank you, Max. Do you want to go on to we've got 10 minutes for our future, or did you want to share the metrics?
No, I'd like to use that word, can that till next time. We'll take it next time, because I'd just like to just touch on the matrix to see how that's being responded to.
Shall I stop sharing and you can share?
Yeah, and I'll share.
Interesting, Giles's point about the. I thought it was really going to go ahead. This thing of making sure they knew, because how else do you charge a higher rate of council tax if you don't know who's running a holiday let business? So.
Can I just add, if anyone's coastal, we recycle broken beach toys. I know people find them hard to recycle, but if anyone wants to collect them, I know you can reuse them, obviously, but a lot of them are broken. So it's one of the waste streams we have in Weymouth, and we can collect across most of the coast. So we can read all the buckets and spades and things like that. So if anyone has a littery type thing on the coast and they do collect them, they can be recycled by us.
Right. I think I'm ready to share.
Lovely, thank you, Max.
Can everyone see that, or?
Yeah. Okay.
Everyone can see it.
Everyone okay with that?
Yeah. Okay. I'll just try and just make it larger. That's better. Right. Well, I put this together almost by accident because I wanted to get my mind around who was who. And as I did it, it occurred to me it'd be useful for everyone. And then I started to try and somehow colour code it to see what people might have like-minded interests. So it's got 3 tabs on the bottom. The how to use tab, very, very quickly, easy to find people. whether they're groups or individuals, where they are geographically, in case you want to arrange to call in to meet someone else, if you're going that way anyway. The green part, try to get this community-led sorting interest, whether it's people want to start it, doing it already, or just interested, want to find out more. And I was aiming to compare, well, not the bus shelter and Win on Waste were the two I chose that sprang to mind. So the whole rationale of doing that, and to bring councils into it, MPs perhaps. We have 8 MPs in Dorset and BCP. I have a connection in the House of Lords, one of the 2 Green representatives there, and she's Jenny Jones. She's prepared to write to each of the MPs to put our case to try and get them more involved. In the case of MPs who currently may not be, I know some are fully engaged, and that's fantastic. But that was just a possible route that might help. And then education and events, again, those links with schools and so on. And then down towards the bottom there, 3 of the 4 issues that we've just talked about. And for me, those were the sort of bullet points about why we should do that. The links are the most important part. There's a wealth of information there, all sorts of detail that can be drilled down into. And then finally, my own notes. Please don't be offended or whatever from the notes I made. I just did them quickly for my own benefit, but I think those might be helpful for other people. So to actually use it, pick on any one of these. So we've got a parish council there, which comes up with a link, and that we could do just as an example. So all the links work. They've all got different characteristics, but that's really useful. If I could just find a way of getting back to the matrix, which I probably shouldn't have done that. So I'm learning at the same time. Now, right, so I can get back to it. Hey, and then the comments, as I say, we went down to, let's say, we go down to Martin Gregory, just as a name that's struck me. There's a lot there about him in terms of resources and all sorts of information. And this applies to everyone, even if it's somebody who just said they're interested to learn more about something in particular. So I thought that would be useful. And I have a particular lady who I haven't officially talked to about this, but I've had an offer that she might be able to help update this and let it grow and be more comprehensive and more useful. So this is just work in hand. And this is the first step to try and get everybody to communicate better with each other and share best practice. So I just wanted to say that, which we've just managed to squeeze in time. So I don't know what feedback there is on that. Just finally, did people find it useful? Have they had a look?
Yes, great. Had a look.
Yeah.
There's some nodding people. Looks brilliant to me.
Lots of nodding is good. And again, if anybody wants to just drop an email to say what they thought in a bit more detail, feel free, follow it up. Because the more feedback we get, the better we can make this. Although I don't want to duplicate other people's efforts, and I respect there's some fantastic websites out there, really fantastic.
Be useful if everybody could contact you to say, so for example, people have put in the chat what they can recycle with their groups. If everybody could actually contact DCAN to say the sort of scope of stuff that they're doing to do collections for recycling, what they can recycle to add to the database.
I think any feedback to DCAN at this point would be beneficial, and we'll trawl through it, no matter how long and huge it is, and try and make the best use of it all.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good.
Thank you to everyone.
So, yes, are you okay to stop sharing, Max? Then we'll get everybody on the screen.
Sure.
So yes, it's 7:30 exactly. Impressive, very impressive. Although we did miss a little bit on the presentation, but that's because of the discussion being so useful, I think, I hope. Thanks very much to all of you for coming. Thank you to Max for doing all this really hard work, getting everything going, and all your ideas and everybody's input. And what's the date of the next meeting?
What we're trying to do is to get Martin Gregory and hopefully Sarah, I don't know, but outside of the next meeting. Well, first of all, to agree a date which both of them could make would be ideal if we can, which until I hear back from Martin, we haven't successfully done yet. But it's roughly a month's time, within a few days either way. But in the interim, I think if we write back to everyone saying our initial impression about this meeting, and to suggest that people, we try and put forward perhaps a potential group or 3 or 4, and see what people make of it, and then see what we can do in the next month, and then report back on that to see where we've got to by then.
Excellent. That sounds good. Giles?
I'm going to have to go very soon because another meeting to go to, unfortunately. But I was just going to say, August is a very busy month for lots of people. You might consider that your next full meeting is not until September. So some of the groups that you're obviously going to set up to deal might want to exchange emails and start getting themselves organised before then. But you might just want to put the next proper meeting back till a little bit later, I think.
Good idea.
Lovely. Yes, there's vegetables to be watered. That's my main panic.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.